Yeah. Welcome, everybody. This is Anthony Rosa, Mr. Remedy, and you are watching another show on the Round Table Remedies. This show was created to inspire, connect, and educate you from real people, real stories, and their real challenges. Today, I have some movers and shakers that have dedicated their lives to spreading awareness and taking initiative to making a difference. So today's show is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the deep blue sea. Yeah, that's right. We're going to be talking about our amazing blue oceans.
Yes.
Can someone right now in the comment section tell me what oceans there are, how many, and what their names are? We want to keep this fun, so engage with us. And for those that are into climate change or going green solutions, you're going to have to sit tight because my buddy Don over here is going to talk to us a little bit later on. So in a moment, I'd like in speaker rotation for you to tell us a little bit more about where you are and where you're coming from. Merle?
Hi, my name is Merle Liivand. I am Estonian, but currently living in Florida, South Miami, and I am mermaid, but also ocean activist.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Don?
Hello, Anthony. Good to be on your show. My name is Don Owens. I am calling from Temecula, California, where it's always sunny. Well, almost always. And I am also a huge. I didn't know I was until recently. I'm a huge planet lover, and I hope by the time we finish today that everybody else will be too.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, speakers, for coming on. I think this topic is very important because it impacts all of us. So please, those that are watching, engage with us if you're watching live. And if you're watching a little bit later, we'll catch up back with you. So without further ado, let's begin. So, our first speaker, I got a chance to meet you through our mutual friend, Tony. And Merle, you're a national Estonian competitive swimmer, a model, an aquapreneur, Swimera CEO, ambassador, triathlete, international spokesperson, and open water swimmer from Tallinn, Estonia. She is known mostly as a modern day life mermaid, an ice princess who never stops exploring life and passion towards Waterworld. She works with many successful brands like Waterworld, Finnis, Trimspin, Viking Beauty Secrets. She has featured in many swimming technical videos like Go Swim TV, Swimspire, and USA Swimming. In 2019, NBC TV named her Women Who Are Making a Difference TV segment. That was pretty cool. And you were also featured in Good Morning America, Telemundo, and NBC. You've been busy. And most known recently in uh, talk to us a little bit about the world record. I wanted to bring that up a little bit later, but I know that that's something that we wanted to talk about in kind of introducing you. But without further ado, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what got you involved into this.
Yeah, I mean, I know the list is long, and actually, those are like, small things. I do so much every day that it's exciting. I mean, what keeps me excited is probably being from Estonia, from really cold, icy, snowy place. From what is when people don't know, it's in Northern Europe. It's Scandinavian country, and when I moved down to Florida, I fell in love with the ocean. I kind of knew it always. I belong as a mermaid to the ocean, but that was the point where I fell in love with the water, and I have been getting really into how to bring more human connection with the water, because I believe that when human has this love what I have, or even just a simple fact that they start their day watching a water or ocean or listening sounds of the ocean, that then they will appreciate the ocean more and they will keep the oceans clean.
Mhm.
And after a while being exploring triathlon, and I actually did also modern pentathlon world championships, and I got sixth place there without knowing anything about like the laser shooting and running. But after finding that there's so many different sports that are connected with the water, I realized that I want to be the mermaid who brings humans back to the connection with the water, back to the oceans, because I believe that's the only way how we can make them maybe even understand what it is ocean all about, and appreciate more ocean. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when you're talking about the ocean and the water, what kind of connected you with the water first? So, talking about making a difference, what we want to hear is kind of like what pulled you and attracted and why.
Well, I started, if I think about my own swimming career, I started swimming because my lung collapsed. I had health problems. And my own brother was born with the hip dysplasia, and he had to take the baby swimming lessons. And just seeing how, strong I became as a human, I'm talking here as a human, not just the athlete, and I saved basically my lungs thanks to learning to breathe in the water and heal in the water. And that just was making me understanding that, we spent 9 months already in the ocean, like in the mother's belly, that in the water, that every human in this world
Yeah.
maybe forgets to have that healing part through the ocean. And also after being an athlete, you start understanding also having clean water. We sometimes take advantage of that when we have that around us. I mean, having clean water to just to survive is so essential nowadays, and we don't understand that. And I definitely see that now becoming more real to Californians, for example, and different places in the world. So that's where my passion kind of grew. That I want to be the advocate for water and cleaner water, but also after a while training for Olympic trials, I started seeing microplastic everywhere, and that was just no brainer that I as a swimmer, I who healed through the water, need to start protecting the waters.
Right. Wow. And so that passion or that love for the water came because it was like life or death in that situation, and then that passion grew because of what you saw that needed more, something that needed more attention to be put on. Has there ever been a moment where you lost that passion?
Well, you mean passion to fight for oceans? Um, I would say that there was a moment where I felt like I lost the fight for cleaner planet. Was the moment when I saw fish kill happening in front of my eyes, and the fishes suffocating because there was no oxygen. And that was the moment where I was like, I do everything, and it feels not, I'm not doing enough. And that was, I would say, mentally also really hard to understand that what else I should be doing, like how I can save oceans to have oxygen so the fishes are not dying. So that day really was like I was questioning myself a lot.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So for those that are watching that don't understand about ocean, and you say ocean, there's not enough oxygen in the ocean. um what do you mean by that, for those that don't understand? Right, for us, we can't breathe in the water, but the fish obviously do, and they need oxygen. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what happened during the pandemic, it was our beaches and most of the swimming places were closed, and I was thinking like, oh, that's great, the ocean gets healing. But what happened same time was that lots of people were at home and using fertilizers, and you even
Oh,
just leaving a dog poop and then having a rain and that coming down to the water, what's gets stuck somewhere, and then the bacteria starts growing and multiplying and growing with the fertilizers and different pesticides, that just kind of grew like a bubble, what burst, meaning there was so much toxins and there was no water circulation going on,
Mm.
no boats, circling even that, or no currents having on those canals in Miami. That just grew to be super, uh, you know, if there is a toxin that eats the oxygen out,
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
And if it gets stuck somewhere and there is same times, sun and the heat and no circulations, there is nothing what produces oxygen. So basically, that side of bay was stuck and dying, and the ocean oxygen run out, then we have to put the ventilators inside
Wow.
the ocean. And I'm talking something what I saw in a real life, not on a movie.
Yeah.
And that was the scariest thing in my life. Seeing ventilator tubes going inside the ocean. So we need to like clean out that toxins and have that circulation going on. And that ocean can't, the bay can't heal themselves by nature. Yeah, that I it's
Yeah.
hard to even explain that because
Yes.
it's so hurtful to see.
Yeah.
I mean, look, and this is the point of the show, is that we are talking about making, a difference and spreading awareness. And, we have to kind of get into those terms and of understanding that it's going to be a little confusion and uncomfortable for some that may not understand it, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything about it. Right. And
Yeah.
so, did you ever feel that because that moment of defeat, how did you push through that and persevere? What made you kind of just want to keep going and fight this fight?
Well, it was also that I was on this journey doing Guinness World Records. And that what happened was I was offered to do Olympic test event in Los Angeles as a swimmer. And I was like, I don't want to be just the athlete who takes from the ocean, who enjoys the ocean, and that should, yeah, that's my everyday work, but I just don't want to be that athlete. So I start seeing so many, fishes and turtles being stuck on the fishing nets and plastic. So 2019, I created totally new style of world record of swimming with the mermaid fin without using arms. And the first record, what I did was 10 kilometers. And that went quite well. There is another fun fact is that actually Usain Bolt kind of challenged me to do that, and I got it done, and I was really proud of myself. And when that fish kill happened, that happened 8 months basically after my first Guinness World Record. And it was quite the interesting timing because I start seeing that the bay is dying and it's kind of water quality is going down, and also the mask were at that time floating around. And I called the Guinness people and I said, I want to do 20 of August. I want to do Guinness World Record in the bay. And the fish kill happened on 7th of August.
Mm.
Wow.
So basically, the place where I wanted to do a Guinness World Record was messed up.
You weren't able to
Wow.
swim.
Right. And I had to find the plan B. What I was really lucky that we have Miami Atlantic Ocean side, and I was able to swim there. But that was like a real sign that I need to go and keep doing those records until I get the whole world attention to understand that we need to pay attention that yes, we're suffering with pandemic and we have those obstacles, but our next obstacle is going to be that we don't have oxygen anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna talk about with Don a little bit later, how this all correlates, with the Earth and obviously with our oceans. But I just want to say thank you so much, Merle, for just spreading the awareness and going out for new records and creating awareness on this. How was it swimming without without arms? Did that come natural for you?
No, because as a open water swimmer, my strongest, and even when I do like the ice swimming championships, I only rely on my upper body. My legs are actually the weak
Oh,
ones. So I
mm,
had to
Mm.
like figure out how to train that. But when you see those fishes suffering, there's like nothing will stop you. It's like you feeling you're that mother mermaid who will push through whatever pain. Even though I have now three different Guinness World Records. This year I did also 30K. I have holes on my legs from rubbing the fin against my skin and the salt and so on. But that pain and that scars, they remind me why I was born to this world and why I have this connection with the water, because I was about to lose lungs and now I'm here to fight for ocean oxygen.
no.
So
And just as an athlete, to say that you went from going and focusing on your weakest in the water where you feel most comfortable, I wonder how many people would do that. What Put yourself in Merle's shoes. You're something that you're super strong in. Look for what you're super weak in and go break a Guinness World Record in that. That's awesome, and with the passion, of course, that can drive you to make a difference. So for those that are watching, I hope that you're super inspired that you can really do anything. And just like Merle, that she had an issue with her lungs that kind of caused her to change her lifestyle, that focused more on a healthier living, that gave her this opportunity to shed this awareness. So that's super cool. um I have a couple more questions for you, and I wanted to make it a little bit lighthearted. So, what is your favorite season to swim?
actually, right now when we in Miami are hitting cold front, because I love to see how all the other swimmers complaining and I keep going.
Mhm, mhm,
I love, well, I love probably, probably the spring because it's like blooming time. The summer is when I don't like to swim at all because the oceans are hot. And then another thing is that when oceans are getting hotter and hotter because temperature rise, that's actually harmful for humans
mhm,
because it's like if you go into jacuzzi, your heart rate goes up, and if you're trying to exercise in it, you might have de-stress for your heart and you might get a heart attack.
mhm,
So even though lots of people dreaming about, oh, let's get the summer vacation and swim, it might be actually dangerous.
mhm,
So it's really important to follow all the guidelines
mhm.
around the beaches or lakes or wherever place you go to swim. But probably I love the challenges when it's colder and all the swimmers are complaining and I'm like, let's go, trying to inspire them. But
Imagine that, Don. Let's go when it's cold and, and
Wow.
do a polar swim. Let's do it. And then my last question, Merle, if now, because you're spreading a lot of awareness in the ocean, and was there any particular fish that you grew attracted to? So if you could be a fish in the water, which would it be?
oh man, um, well, dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
But I lately I like turtles as well because it's just like they can grow so old,
Yeah,
it's just
that's
like
true.
they have so much wisdom inside them. And dolphin because their brain is like I think three times bigger than humans or
Mm-hmm.
something. And just that just shows that if you have that connection with the water, your brain can keep developing healthy way. And I like everything about how, yeah. Well, turtles because they are happy to swim even by themselves. They don't need a social media to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's
There's,
it's
there's
a
a lot
hard
of
question.
messages there.
Yeah, it's a hard question, but I think like Lately, I like turtles because they really don't care they just keep going and watching the sunrise and sunset, and then they go down again.
That free spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Merle, again, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. There's a reason why the both of you are here on for today's show. And Don Owens is a visionary leader in the fight against climate change. For over a decade, he's been developing hydrogen combustion and mechanical engineering solutions to reduce the devastating impacts of the lesser known pollutant, black carbon. An entrepreneur with a law and engineering background, Don Owens' path to building a green future began in his garage. Inspired by an article on how hydrogen can increase car gas mileage and improve fuel economy, he actually created and tested his first prototype on his old truck. After positive results, he went from testing a prototype at his garage to an EPA lab where he learned from the particle pollution, tiny particles that are in the air made of dirt, and other major components, of course, black carbon. Not only that, he learned that all fossil fuel powered engines and devices produced particle matter and that its climate change are devastating. Yet, here was a solution. Not only did he find his company's purpose, but Don also connected to his mission on a personal level when understanding the critical effects climate change has upon rural and more vulnerable communities. He saw the current solutions and felt that seeing results 10, 15 years later and did not address the most immediately issues plaguing so many people globally. And here we are. Don, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, Anthony. That was a great summary. I mean, dang. But anyway, no, this is a very serious issue, and well. Let me just tell you, my name is Don Owens. I accidentally found some of these things, but one of the things I want everybody that can hear my voice to remember and to bury inside of their brain is that black carbon is the enemy of the planet. And now I'm going to tell you what black carbon is. I'm going to tell you most people have definitely haven't heard of that statement, but they don't know what black carbon is. But they shouldn't feel bad. I didn't either. It turns out over years of me developing my product, I found out in testing that indeed, instead of saving fuel, which is what my objective was, it turned out that for diesel engines, we could reduce something called particulate matter. Now, at the time, I didn't know what particulate matter was, but it turns out that it was a major, major cause for a lot of the health issues and health problems that a lot of human beings are having all the time just because of air pollution. But years later, I found that black carbon was a component of particulate matter. And also years later, I found out that black carbon was 1,500 times worse than CO2. And most people have heard of CO2, and they always think about CO2 as being the culprit of climate change and global warming, which it may very well be. But one of the things that black carbon does, and again, black carbon is the result of unburned fuel. Fuel is not burned completely during the combustion process, and everything that burns fuel, all of it produces black carbon. But what happens is that black carbon gets on our snow-capped mountains and glaciers and ice tracks, and it, instead of that ice and snow reflecting sunlight, it absorbs sunlight, and it absorbs it so that it melts. And our melting glaciers is the biggest problem. It's not one of the problems of climate change. It is the problem of climate change, because that melting ice causes totally different weather patterns. It can ultimately, if all of the ice melts in the snow and in the north and the south, which is the pattern, which is the trajectory we are on, unless we address black carbon, that can even hinder the ocean currents. One of the things that the ocean does, the currents, they circulate all of that water and all of these different things around so that our planet can be healthy. And that circulation is vital. But without a cold north and a cold south, it's very hard for those ocean currents to continue. And also the weather patterns in general will, we've seen the result of the ocean, of the weather patterns changing. No one today can deny climate change. It's no question, it's upon us. But what most people don't know, including me at the time, is that we can do something about it. All of our leaders right now, they really don't have any solutions. They wish they had solutions, but it's not anybody's fault. I happened to discover by accident that we cut black carbon in half. I mean, we cut particulate matter in half when we use hydrogen to assist in combustion. So what we do is we take water, which is probably the second most plentiful thing on the planet, and we take that water, we split it into hydrogen and oxygen, we make the fuel burn better, and the oxygen goes to the atmosphere just like a plant, just like a tree. So in the process of doing that, we cut black carbon in half. And because we are beginning this, we ultimately need to cut black carbon out totally, because once we're able to cut out black carbon, we can stop our glaciers from melting. But until we do that, we're going to have a very, very, very tough time with climate change. And unfortunately, a lot of the solutions that people have today, if it's not addressing black carbon, it's just not going to work. In fact, one of the premier, David Attenborough, was it Attenborough, was at the climate change conference recently talking about black carbon. And he was talking about the fact that everybody's missing the fact that black carbon really, truly is the reason why we're having climate change. But no one knows that there is a solution to black carbon. He didn't even know that there was a solution to black carbon. I didn't know that there was a solution to black carbon until January of this year, when it dawned on me that because we can actually reduce this particulate matter in half, and that black carbon was the major component in particulate matter, we can cut black carbon in half. Now, half is not nearly as good as 100%, but it's better than nothing. But when people see the images of what black carbon is on these snow-capped mountains and snow-capped glaciers, it will break your heart. I'm serious. It will. Most people have never seen it. But when you see it, you realize, oh my God. And then you realize why our ice is melting at such alarming rates. Now, it turns out that nobody is to blame for this, but it turns out that we live in an ocean of energy created by fossil fuels. Now, that's not to say that the ocean of energy is bad, because we wouldn't have any of our advances without it. We have our medical advances, our hotels, our travel, the fact that we can live in a house that's comfortable, either cold or warm, the fact that we can go to a grocery store and pick from an array of products. It's all because of this infrastructure. It's the fossil fuel-based infrastructure that we all live in, that we have to have. And it's a part of how we live. So it's nothing inherently bad about that infrastructure, because it helps human beings to live. But it turns out that the fossil fuel nature of it creates black carbon. Now, we're not going to stop burning fuel, because we need all these things. We wouldn't even be on the internet right now if it wasn't for the fossil fuel-based infrastructure. We wouldn't be able to communicate. We wouldn't be able to do it. We wouldn't be able to send people to the moon. We wouldn't be able to do anything without it. We wouldn't even be able to build a green infrastructure, which is what we're all shooting for one day. We couldn't do it without a fossil fuel energy infrastructure. So the infrastructure is vital for our existence. But what we need to understand and recognize, and most people don't even realize how vast this infrastructure is. I mean, it's vast. It includes more than just cars and trucks. It includes shipping, containers. It includes everything. And even if you just think about the fact that we just had a pandemic and we had to produce millions and millions of vaccine vials, those little bottles and the needles that go with those bottles, millions of them. And they had to be produced somewhere. We can't go to the jungle and just make them with a chisel and a hammer. They have to be done in a factory, heated by fossil fuel based energy. So we need the energy. So we can't run away from the fact that we can't use fossil fuels. So people need to stop using that word as if it's a bad word, because it's not. It's the reason why we exist. However, we now know that we can do something about the end result of burning that fuel. And before we developed this technology, I didn't even know we needed the technology. No one knows about the technology, but now we know that we can cut black carbon, which is 1,500 times worse than CO2, and we can cut it in half. And it's the reason that our glaciers are melting. It's the reason that they're melting so fast. It's the reason that it's going to ultimately, if we don't do anything about it, Florida is going to be underwater. All of our coastal cities will be underwater 30 or 40 years from now. If we don't address black carbon, then we have a serious problem.
Hey,
But
Don,
we can address it now.
we're gonna address it right now. Can I do a share of a 2 minute video for those that are watching so that they can understand the effects on black carbon on our glaciers?
Sure. Anthony, that was breathtaking. Serious. That was breathtaking. It's hard to believe. And it's refreshing to know that people know. There are people that know the effects of it. But what nobody knows is that we can do something about it. We can cut it in half now. But that was an incredible video. I like to, if you would, if you could, I would love for you to send me that video. That thing needs to be seen. That was incredible.
Yeah, and I definitely don't, take the props on putting that together. Shout out to the project, but it's definitely something I can share with you. And I've been on this mission myself, and with our conversations, just learning more about it myself and where I fall into the place on what I'm doing to make a change and bring awareness. I learned a lot too, and so I just wanted to share that just to kind of help with those that are more of a visual person to get the
Right.
visual on what black carbon is and how it's impacting.
Yes. Wow. That was incredible. And the beauty of it is that, well, I should say, I appreciate seeing that because those are the things that I have somewhat compiled on my own website and some of the talks that I've done. I had never seen the extent to which it's known to be that. I didn't know people knew it that well. But see, the thing about it, the beauty of it is that people do, and people are becoming more and more aware of black carbon. They still don't know. Mostly scientists know. It's not the general public. So if you ask the person along the street, and you ask them what causes climate change, they'll say CO2. But one of the clips in that video said sometimes 1,000,000 times worse. I saw that. It said 1,000,000 times worse than CO2. 1,000,000. So this is a huge problem. But now the beauty of it all is that we don't have to just feel bad about it. Because right now we just can feel bad. We honestly just feel bad. You don't know what you can do, you just feel bad. But now we can do something about black carbon. We can actually cut it in half, and we have to, because those glaciers, those ice sheets, all that stuff is supposed to be white. They're supposed to be white as snow, but they're not. And so we have to get rid of black carbon. But the entire world has to first know that it is the enemy of the planet. They have to know that, because once we know that in our heads, we can do something about it. We are human beings. There is nothing that human beings can't do. Nothing, if we decide. And if we decide that that's our enemy, that will be our enemy. And all of a sudden, all the brilliant minds and all the other minds that live on this planet will start thinking about ways that we can eliminate black carbon. The problem is extremely vast. And just like that video said, it's more than just a car, a couple of cars and trucks. It is vast. It's everything that we do to burn fuel. But we can burn all that fuel better. And again, I hope this doesn't sound like a shameless plug, but my book, Burn Fuel Better, talks about that. It talks about how we can burn our fuel better. And we have to. There's no choice. We're going to be burning fuel for the duration of most of the time we're on this planet. Now, we might think we're going to move into we're going to somehow magically move into a green economy or a green infrastructure. But we can't even build a green infrastructure without fossil fuels. So we have to burn that fuel better. And so that book, Burn Fuel Better, has got to be read. I hope it's read by everybody. It's not about buying the book. It's about getting the education about what this is all about. Most people even the scientists know the problem, but they don't know that there's a solution. And so the book brings together the fact that we have a problem and we have a solution. But we have to inform literally all of our leaders, anybody that cares. They need to understand that black carbon is the enemy of the planet. And as long as we don't address it, and as long as we do anything that's directed toward abating climate change, and if it does not address black carbon, it will not work. So we have to address it. So that's our only path. And that's why I think I'm now here on this planet. I didn't know I was going to be a spokesman for anti-black carbon, you know.
And so where did that passion really come from? I mean, was it just really trying to get better gas?
Yeah, well, it's funny because my started on reading a book talking about how you can improve your fuel economy on gasoline engines. So I bought this book. I read this thing about how you can put together this little device. I put together the device. The device wasn't quite as good as it needed to be. So I tinkered around, and made it work on my car. So all of a sudden I was saving gas on my car. It wasn't a whole lot of gas, but it was saving gas. But this journey started off that way. And it was all kinds of challenges along the way, because when I finally got into the testing labs, the engine testing labs, most of my tests were dismal failures. All right. They were just ridiculous. And in fact, I was ready to fold up the tent a couple of times. And somehow the universe allows you to continue when you get a little sliver of good news. So one day I got a little sliver of good news about, and I can remember driving home from a lousy test. And I said, why am I being led down this way? Why? And I said, maybe it's the oxygen. The fact that we were creating oxygen, like a leaf. I said, maybe it's the oxygen. Maybe I'm supposed to do this because the oxygen can help the planet. All right. And it turns out, and when I did a little research on that, turns out that the more oxygen in the atmosphere, the cooler the planet. That's a fact. All right. But again, I still didn't know that I was going to end up being an anti-black carbon individual because, like I said, when I got into these tests, most of the tests were dismal failures. And then one day after one of these dismal failure tests, the technician came up to me afterward and said, oh, by the way, but I should say this first. After some of these on the gasoline engine side, some of the dismal tests, somebody asked me if I wanted to try to do diesel engines. I said, oh, why not? I may as well. Before I leave, I'll just try some diesel engines. And so after the dismal fuel economy diesel engine tests, the technician came up to me and said, oh, by the way, this thing reduced your particulate matter by almost 50%. And of course, my question was, what's particulate matter? Because I didn't know what it was. And he didn't know what it was. He just said, well, it's something we measure here. So it wasn't until I went home that night and looked it up. And this is part of how you keep going. I just happened to look it up and found out that it causes all types. It's like a toxin. It's like a poison for human beings. It's poison. It turns out that it creates all kinds of respiratory problems, all kinds of premature deaths. It's bad news. And that was enough at the time for me to keep going. I said, well, maybe I can focus on particulate matter because particulate matter is not a good thing. So if we can reduce particulate matter in half, that'd be pretty good. But it wasn't. And I still didn't know whether or not that was going to be a basis for me to sell the idea of saving human lives. That may or may not be enough, But I said, well, maybe it's enough. And so I decided I would continue down that track. But because I didn't know, I continued to read everything I could read about particulate matter. And it wasn't until years later I picked up this article on particulate matter because I was reading everything I could find. And page 13 or something in this article, they mentioned black carbon. I said, black carbon? And then they mentioned it was 1,500 times worse than CO2. And they also mentioned that it coats the glaciers and causes them to melt. I said, black carbon is a problem. And it wasn't until this year in January that I had to do a talk about my technology. And I had to put together all these information over the years of what I had discovered and do it in 3 minutes. And I tell you, it was so much stuff swirling around in my head. I just had to pray to let some of it go because it was just so much. And then, but eventually what happened was
what you're talking about.
A couple of the important things came through. One of the important things was black carbon was 1,500 times worse than CO2. And we cut black carbon in half. Wow. That's pretty dope. Wow. And that's when it dawned on me. And in fact, it was still kind of hard to believe because it made me conclude. I said, wait a minute, we can save the planet. So we can save the planet? Are you kidding? And because that's what it does. Black carbon coats the glaciers, causes them to melt. We cut black carbon in half.
You save a glacier, you save a life. It sounds there's a parallel there.
Oh my God. In fact, it's hard to believe. Just like that video that you showed, there are people that live on fresh water because of the melting glaciers. And if those glaciers aren't there, there's over 800 million people that live off fresh water created by glaciers. And if it's not created by glaciers, where are we going to get the fresh water from? So no, but it turned out that as fate would have it, once this got inside of me, when I realized we could save the planet. I just happened to meet someone a few days later, and somebody wanted me to go meet some people in LA. I didn't know who these people were. It was just friends of friends. So somebody asked me, what did I do? And I said, oh, I'm about to save the planet because we found out that black carbon, I just told them the story. And they said, you know what? You need to write a book. I said, I don't have time to write a book. They said, no, you really have to write a book because people need to understand what you're saying. I said, well, I don't know how to write a book. I've never written a book. And she said, well, what I can do is I can interview the, and it turns out one of the people I was telling about this black carbon story happened to be a book publisher.
Oh, wow.
Come on. How does that happen? All right.
Perfect.
How does that happen? Only the universe can do something.
Divine.
Like
that's
all right. That is, it truly is. And so she told me, she said, listen, all you have to do is tell me what you've done. Tell me everything you've done, and I will help you write it. I can find ghostwriters, and we can figure out a way to put it together. I said, well, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. And then she said, this was a killer. She said, and we can do it in 90 days. I said, come on. What? You got to be kidding me. No way.
Prove it.
Well, it turns out that the very next day we signed a contract. That was sometime in March. By the end of July, the book was finished.
Wow.
That was this year.
Sometimes I'm hearing the toughest part is the cover, like, that's what I'm hearing from some authors out there. Was it hard to find that cover picture that you wanted?
You know what? Listen, this book publisher, and I just want to put a little shout out for her. Her name is Andrea Albright. She's with Beverly Hills Publishing. Okay. She understood what my passion was. She came up with the title. She helped. We both got online one day and came up with that cover, and it was just perfect. I mean, it's just beyond perfect. All right. But so that's how it turns out that I now am Don Climate Owens, because that's my handle now, because that's my middle name. Climate is my middle name now.
There you go. I love it. We're coming onto that part of the show, and it always comes so fast, where I want to go so much longer, but we're gonna have to keep everybody wanting more.
Yep.
And so we're coming around the final thoughts part of the show, where we want to kind of just let everybody know our final thoughts on what we were just talking about. So bringing up Merle back. Merle, after experiencing the show, what are some of your final thoughts?
If you don't know how, believe and you will save the world.
Yep. You don't have to know how.
Just start swimming through the obstacles.
Yeah.
Don, did you ever feel that at any point this might have been a little over your head?
Yeah, in fact, like I said, I was about to close up the chapter of the book, not the book, but I was about to fold up the tent on a number of occasions, and because I just didn't think I had what I needed to proceed. And but it's just like anything else. Say if you're driving through the city, you can't wait till all the lights turn green. You just have to drive through the city. And you have to come to a red light, and if it turns green, it turns green, and that's what happens. So there were many times that I questioned what I was doing, but at the same time, I always got just enough to continue.
Absolutely. You heard it here, folks. We got the quote of the show: "The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it." That's by Robert Swan.
Wow.
Go in grace, go in peace. You saw it here on the Roundtable Remedies. This is Anthony, over and out. See you soon.
Thank you, Anthony.
Bye.
Speakers don't go nowhere.
All righty. Wow. Incredible.